So I will call this meeting to the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors to order for Monday, September 29th. And would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of September 22nd and 24th.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, number 2 on the list, or actually, I'm sorry, the second thing on the list is to meet with Dave, who's back. And he and you are going to go roller skating in the buffalo herd together.
Oh, good.
Oh, good.
What you got, Dave?
We figure out whether or not we want to go ahead with the carpet.
I do believe it's on the agenda. At number 2. So we can move on with that if that's your report.
I did talk with Rod this morning. He's still working on the generator. He's a smaller generator that maybe isn't, but well, we could isolate that room and put everything in the computer room on one generator.
Okay.
And if it works out, and it can be located on the east side of the building and tied in with the natural gas over there, so. But it would require that we run a circuit from a panel in the boiler room to that room so that we can take and then set another panel in that room. It's the only way that we can isolate power.
Okay.
And he's still trying to figure out as to whether or not there's natural gas up in the northwest corner of the property, up where the big electrical boxes are. So we could go whole building if you wanted to go that route too.
Well, generally speaking, I mean, we can certainly lose power during ice storms, but it may not be quite as, that's what I'm looking for.
We haven't really seen a need for it in the
Yeah.
past since I've been here.
Yeah. I mean, it's just with what it costs for all that computer stuff. I guess what I was driving at was, I think we've got a little bit of breathing room here. We don't have to rush as far as, so, while he's doing his research.
Sure,
So,
yeah. So anyway, I'm still on that, and I've got a call into Steve Thornton to talk about the porch over on the county office.
and nobody ever gets back to you on that, do they?
That's on me, that's not on him, so,
Okay.
So if you want to talk about the carpet now, since it's number 2, then we can.
Okay. So we have in the packet, to discuss and consider invoices from Richwell Carpet and Cabinet Center Inc. To put carpet in the old assessor's office downstairs. There are 2 invoices, I'm assuming 2 different types of carpet.
There's actually 3 there.
Oh, okay.
There's one for the bathroom upstairs,
Oh, that's right.
and then there's 2 for the basement. The 2 larger ones are for the basement. The largest one is if we go with the carpet square in there. And the lesser amounts, which keeps us under $5,000 total, is if we don't do the carpet square and just do all the wall down there. So that's basically the difference between the 2. And I didn't bring my copy, but I think it adds up to like $4,800 and some odd dollars to do all 3 areas.
Yeah, $4,799.
Yeah.
And that's to do,
That should do both of the rooms in the file room down there, the room that Abby's gonna occupy, and then the main area, which we're gonna use for meetings or something. And the bathroom up on the 2nd floor, which has to be done one way or the other.
so you're recommending wall to wall?
Yes.
And then the upstairs where he's talking about, we've already had the concern up there with the linoleum, the tile, whatever, so we do need to replace that up there before somebody gets hurt. So I would entertain a motion to approve for spending $4,799 with Richwell Carpet and Cabinet to do the two rooms in the old assessor's office and the restroom upstairs on the second floor.
So moved.
Discussion?
I think this is its own quote. It's not the two together.
Yeah, but down here at the very bottom, he's got highlighted $4,799.
They're all highlighted.
Oh, mine aren't. Sorry.
This is how much it is. If you do the wall to wall
Okay,
and this tile.
And the lesser two together.
okay.
I mean, it's
Oh,
close, but
Yeah.
it's not.
All right, so we changed the number to 4,728.03 to amend the motion amount.
where are you coming up with that figure?
This and that.
Oh, okay, all right.
This is if you do the carpet squares.
But that didn't include the back stairs.
No.
Oh, I misread it. I'm sorry. So I withdraw my first.
Okay, so I'll re-ask the question, entertain a motion to approve $4,728.03 for Richwell Carpet and Cabinet for the two rooms in the old assessor's office and the second floor bathroom.
So moved.
I second.
Discussion? Quickly, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 One other little thing that is going to happen down there, turn that area into a usable space for Abby. We're gonna have to get some wire shelving down there. Abby's gonna look and see what Menards has, so. At some point in time, we may spend a little bit more money. Right now, I'm trying to get the room done, so.
So what kind of shelving?
It's just some, freestanding, wire shelving.
Oh, okay, I guess you know what you're talking about.
It's basically 7 foot wide, 6 foot tall, and then it's got, 3 or 4 shelves in it that are about 24 inches wide. So we're probably gonna have to put, 3 to 4 in there, and they're ranging in price around a couple $100 a piece, so.
We have talked about getting rolling cages and we have talked with the sheriff and EMA about delivering those to each precinct, and that way everybody, one precinct is in each rolling cage essentially. So that may be a different direction, but something to that effect.
I just wanna get the room done, that's all I want to.
So you'll handle that end of it? Okay. Perfect.
But once we get the carpet installed down there, then we can take that third floor, that storage area, that storage unit that Sandy had upstairs and locate it down there, if that's where you decide you want to put it.
That'd be up to you guys.
Mhm.
Okay. And then you also will have a kind of a calendar, so to speak. Okay.
That can actually, it's finished on 3 sides, so you could bring that out from the wall if you wanted to set it up as a counter in there.
Yeah, like they had upstairs.
Right, it would have to. I think it would have to go on the west wall.
Okay,
Yeah, it'd have to go on the west wall.
I can go down there and mark each web.
I know we drive.
Okay. On his white walls with black marker.
Mhm.
You appreciate that, wouldn't you?
I just want it done.
Well, if he's getting up and leaving, we're done with Dave.
I believe we are.
Okay,
I'm good.
Thanks, Dave.
moving on to the county engineer.
Good morning, supervisors. See, we are doing some edge rutting on Packwood Road, starting at Highway 34 and going north till we run out of county. Edge ruts along that road are, well, edge ruts on all our road extension, but Packwood Road's probably worse than most of them, so that's but that will keep the guys busy for a good chunk of the next week or two. We've got 3 blade operators over on Tamarack north of 136 doing the road prep for Bontrager's, that conversion from a Class B to a Class A. I went through that this morning. They got quite a bit done in just one day last week, so we're hoping that by Wednesday we can start rocking that and then really be done with it early next week. So it's going well. It's not nearly as out of shape as what it appeared at first, so that's good. And then today around noon, Pelling will be setting up traffic control on Pleasant Plain Road to start brooming that so that they can do the fog seal tomorrow. And the only thing we'll have left on that contract is the patchwork over in Batavia area. Keep wanting to say Brighton, that's exactly the wrong corner.
Wrong.
So yeah, over in Batavia. We've got patches on the Farm to Market Road south through town and then also on Old 34. And then also on 246 between Ash and Libertyville, there's a handful of them. We've still got quite a bit of work left, but it will be in October,
Yeah.
which is what we planned on. And it's really all I had.
We get done with that road up there, Bontrager's, if you let me know, I'll get that sign ordered. It's been addressed and I'll have it signed installed.
He has 2 drives into there. I guess you can put it either.
He called me though the other day and he didn't want it installed until you guys were done with the road, so.
I'm sure he's afraid we'll run it over.
Oh, well, I'm not terribly worried about that, but, you know, I said, okay, not a problem, we'll just wait. Go from there. Anything else for Dwayne?
No.
Susie?
Oh, no, I don't need to ask any questions.
Okay,
I'm just glad it's there.
I thought I heard the cork pop on the bottle, but I may have been mistaken. Okay, discuss and consider lowering the speed limit on Brookville Road through Abington from 35 to 25 miles an hour. Dwayne?
We had one of the residents there call and with a concern about children in town, and honestly, I thought it was 25 through there, so I drove up through there and without paying attention to the signs, drove what I felt was a reasonable speed and looked down at my speedometer and I was going 25 miles an hour. With the number of houses that close together, 35 seems to be fairly fast and a little bit of a hassle, especially if there's little kids that are playing. There's a park right there at the corner of Cedar and for, the 1/8 of a mile or whatever it is, I think it makes sense to lower that speed limit. And especially when you consider most of us cheat the speed limit by at least 5 miles an hour most of the time.
I've never heard of such a thing.
So.
Isn't there specific
I'm
code
at
for
least
that, though?
10.
Doesn't that already exist, like within a certain residential?
No,
Parameters?
that is up to the controlling, but they have guidelines.
Oh,
Yeah. There's guidelines on what we should do.
So, I believe we have a resident from Abington on. Would she like to say anything regarding the speed limit? Apparently not.
Okay.
So
Or
she must be happy with what we're doing.
Either that or she's like me and she can't get her speaker to work on Zoom.
Well, that could be too, but I appreciate her being on.
Any further discussion?
Hearing none, I move that we allow the county engineer to lower the speed limit to 25.
I second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Number 3, discuss and consider resolution supporting voluntary annexation of the Valley View Estates subdivision. This is in Batavia. Mayor Drish is on. Tom, do you have anything you wanna say or anything, or?
No.
Okay. So, I'm not gonna read all of the, legal descriptions, but we'd be here for 3 years. But basically, just start down with the whereas after all the legal descriptions, whereas the city of Batavia has presented a copy of this application to the Board of Supervisors of Jefferson County, Iowa, as required by Iowa Code. Whereas the Board of Supervisors have reviewed the application for voluntary annexation and are aware of the development. And whereas the above described parcel is adjacent to the existing corporate limits of the city of Batavia. And pursuant to Iowa Code, a resolution is required to the Board of Supervisors of the county stating whether or not it supports the application. Or whether it takes no position in support or against the application. Whereas the board has taken the Jefferson County Comprehensive Plan into account when considering this resolution. It is the opinion of the Board of Supervisors of Jefferson County, Iowa, that it is advisable and in the best interest of Jefferson County, Iowa, and all persons concerned that the Board of Supervisors support the proposed annexations. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors of Jefferson County, Iowa supports the voluntary annexation of the above described parcel. It is further resolved that the county auditor is hereby directed to immediately file a copy of this resolution with the city clerk of Batavia. I would make a motion to approve.
And I'll second that.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh,
All right. How many copies do we need?
2.
Okay. Meet with ambulance director.
Good morning. I don't really have a lot. Working on protocol updates, just going through everything, kind of cleaning up a little bit, changing a few things, but nothing major. Try to do that annually just to make sure that we're keeping up with patient care standards. Also going through our department policy and procedure updates. Still working on the GEMT grant. I've gone back and forth with them a little bit on just making sure I have all my ducks in a row for that. I think the deadline for that's coming up here. So trying to get that updated or get it submitted in a timely manner. That's really about all I've got. We've had some discussions about using opioid funds for radios and things like that. I don't know if we.
I have not had an opportunity to talk to Susie about it. Susie,
yeah,
I don't know whether this is a stretch or not. I don't know whether it's allowed, but I was gonna run it by you because you are the
you know, I had heard about this, and my comment would be, I do feel we should make sure Elizabeth feels it's proper.
right,
Second.
right. But that's
So I'm
what,
not saying, I think it's a good thing, but I want to get an opinion from Elizabeth Etsy.
that works. That's what we were looking for, was we just didn't know whether or not we could or what the answer would be, but I wanted to run it by you so that you could take that ball and run with it if you wanted to.
Yeah, I will, Lee.
All right.
Easy enough.
Anything else?
Nope, that's all I got.
All right. Giles?
John contacted me and he's not gonna be here, so
Oh,
he
okay.
asked us to bypass it because he's not ready to discuss things.
Okay, well, I will bring the board up to speed. In terms of my conversation via email with Joe Benz. This, Susie, is regarding the new building project out at the fairgrounds.
Yes,
So, the initial conversation, and I may have misunderstood what the fair board was asking, but Joe first talked about what they call a builder's risk policy. And he estimated that it would be somewhere between $3,500 and $6,500 annual, dependent upon building characteristics, just as a ballpark figure. Well, I emailed him back and I said, I thought that they wanted us to insure it after construction. And he said, that may very well be. He says, I apologize if I misinterpreted. So he may be 100% right. I don't know. But that guess is about $5,000 to $6,000 range would be the property cost in theory, if we were adding it as a newly completed building to the property schedule today. So the answer to the question is, we don't know exactly what the cost will be, but if the board decided to go in that direction, we can add it to the policy.
Okay,
But we'll have further conversations with the fair, excuse me, with the fair board and see what their thought process was, because I may have completely misunderstood, but I thought he was asking about insuring it after the fact.
That's the way I took it too, yes. And Joe said we could insure it even though we don't own it?
Yes. Now, do we put this on for next week?
Have to contact John first to see,
Okay,
because
you
he
need to let that-
really wasn't ready to talk about it.
Okay, that's fine. And we may not have to do anything then, but you can let Abby know.
I'll contact him and see where he wants to go.
Okay. So is that all right, Susie?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, discuss and consider office space rent for environmental health. Susie, Jerry Leonard is here so that you're aware that he's in the room.
Okay.
We had a conversation last week, when you were unable to participate. I attended the Board of Health meeting 2 weeks ago, I guess.
Uh-huh,
And in that discussion, I had brought up to the Board of Health the problems that we'd had in the past with IPERS. Not suggesting that we have any issues with Jerry or with IPERS or anything of that nature, to make sure that our bases were covered. One of the areas that we got into trouble with IPERS was that we were providing office space, vehicles, and equipment. Was able to make the argument with IPERS that the computers that were being used was both here and in the assessor's office at the time. That information was required to stay with Jefferson County and could not be on personal computers, so they acknowledged that, but it was the office space, it was the vehicle in this case, which we're not providing a vehicle. But anything that constitutes an employer-employee relationship. And it ended up costing the county over $25,000 to resolve that issue. And no disrespect, Jerry, but significantly less money for the individual that was at the time. So, and IPERS percentages are higher now than they were then on top of that. So whether or not he ever collected it, I have no idea. It's none of my business. So what I'm asking is for that board to discuss and consider a nominal rent charge for the office space that's being used out at the county engineer's office. I would like, if the board agrees to that whatever that dollar amount is, and I don't know, it would be up to the auditor to how to figure it out, that rent would go into a revenue stream per se, into the engineer's budget. So there, now you guys can discuss it.
Do we have any input from our county engineer?
I think we did a quick search on Zillow to see what commercial rates were for office space here in Fairfield. And they range very widely from maybe $1 a
Dwayne, you have to
square foot.
speak up, I cannot hear you.
Oh, we did a search on the Zillow website to investigate what commercial real estate was in Fairfield, and the rents range from around $1 a square foot to as much as $4 a square foot. We're providing parking, housekeeping, Wi-Fi. So I don't know, somewhere in the middle of that range would be, I think, fair. But Yeah. From Jerry's end of it, that wasn't included when he was discussing his position with you guys, so that's kind of between you and him on how you handle that on his end. And, you know, from our end of the world, anything's better than nothing.
Well, so it's just for clarification or just for the record or whatever. His contractual agreement is with the Board of Health, it's not with the Board of Supervisors. Board of Health is an autonomous board that has the right to enter into contractual agreements. Part of the funding for the Board of Health and part of his funding comes from Board of Supervisors during budget time. So just to make that point. I know last week, before Jerry asked us to table it, you had mentioned $100 a month. So Susie, what do you think?
You know, it's $100. I'm just thinking, is that the low end? When would that start? Because
Well, we got the new month coming up on the 1st.
so you're saying October 1st?
Well, I mean, that's not etched in stone, but I'm just saying we do have a new month coming up.
Yeah,
Of course, there'll be a new month after that one.
yeah.
It's funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you guys think is fair and reasonable?
Well, I don't want it, I guess from my perspective, speaking for myself, I don't want it to be punitive. But I think at the same time, it has to be reasonable in the view of the powers to be at the state level. In terms of that it is, you know, considering that he is in a building that is already occupied, that we already fund, that we already, you know, albeit it goes through the engineer's budget, but my point is that, I don't know how much square footage is in that building, but we were charging $5,000 a month either, you know.
We'll take it.
I was sitting on the Board of Health a year ago at the time that we hired Jerry. And this part never really came up to us because we all just assumed he would be going into that office and it was never discussed. So this is the time now to make some decisions on that so we don't get caught with the previous situation we had.
Well, and when Dan was here, he was a county employee.
Yes.
And it was through a mutual arrangement that he at one point in time was at Public Health's office and moved from there out to the engineer's office. This, I think, was way back. I think Tom Goff was even still here at the time. I think it was before Scott. So he was already an IPERS employee, so it was not an issue in that regard. At the time that Russ was here, they were in that office, but they were also IPERS. And so IPERS was being paid on their behalf because they worked for Russ. So the scenario was somewhat different, and I dropped the ball on it in terms of just didn't think about it.
I wasn't aware of it, I'll be truthful. I never thought about this.
When do I get into the conversation? Or anytime I want to, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go back to the September 11th meeting, with the Board of Health that you were there, Lee. You did bring up the issue with the IPERS thing. There was nothing really discussed about rent for the facility that I'm in.
It's not under their jurisdiction.
Okay, but again, it wasn't brought up there. So I guess that's the avenue, I guess. I think that we also, it's not their jurisdiction, but I guess they're the ones that I have the contract with. But there was a little bit of discussion about me renting a different office because at the time Dwayne wanted that office. He wanted an assistant. But then I was told, no, we're not going to get an assistant engineer, that office would be available. I guess at that time, I think that there would have been appropriate time at that time to discuss if there was gonna be a rental fee, which I don't have a problem paying a rental fee. But I think that I want to proceed going this direction, if we're going this direction, is that we contact the Board of Health, that they know that now I'll be charged rent. So that'll probably require a change in the contract fee. And then also, I guess, I want to make sure whatever this rental fee is, that we have a actual lease wrote up, that we have specified, you know, what's included, what's not included. So I guess that would be your attorney working that lease up for you guys, so then my attorney can review it and decide how we're gonna proceed as executing.
Well, you are welcome to vacate those premises and locate somewhere else.
Sure, that'd be
Okay.
fine.
So, and as far as whether or not public health revisit your contract is strictly solely up to public health.
Okay,
That's not between us. We don't have jurisdiction over that.
sure.
My understanding is from that meeting that we had, and I may have misunderstood what they were saying, but that there was money appropriated in your budget for office supplies and stuff above and beyond what your fee is.
Yeah, office supplies, I guess it didn't.
Well, to the tune of $10,000.
Hmm,
So, you know, whether that's an accurate figure or not, I don't know. All right, I haven't seen your budget. Frankly, I don't care. Our discussion is whether or not we want to charge what I consider a nominal fee to dissuade any sniffing around from state entities. And like I say, it was a very expensive set of circumstances, not blaming anybody. It worked out the way that it worked out. And we did appeal it. We lost the appeal. And so we had to make up all that money. So anyway. Susie?
So
Yes,
again,
sir.
We,
I'm here.
okay.
okay, so I guess my question is, then, if I'm, again, we need to discuss if I am moving out of the office, where are we gonna go with all the files? And, how would you want to handle that part of it?
Well, obviously the files belong to Jefferson County,
Right,
as well as the other stuff. If you're wanting to have an arm wrestling contest, I'm more than willing to have an arm wrestling contest.
I'm not going there, Lee. I'm just
Okay.
asking you a question
Then-
about what we would do with the file.
I'm not suggesting that you move out. I'm saying that I can't prevent you from doing so.
Right,
And if that question arose, or if that time arose, we would have to discuss and consider how that would be handled. At this point, I'm just looking at whether or not the board wants to charge a nominal amount of rent, period. End of discussion. That's what's on the agenda.
okay, sure.
Well, I think to cover our butts, we better figure out some kind of a rent agreement. Susie, you agree?
Repeat that, Joe.
I don't remember what I just said.
Well, there you go.
For
Joe, I think you just said for a nominal, we just need to cover our butt.
yes, in case for the IPER situation, yes.
That's what she wrote down.
Yep. So would $100 be feasible, or should we charge more than that? What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, I don't, if I'm speaking for myself, I don't want to make it punitive. I just want it to be sufficient enough that IPERS indeed does view it as rent, and the fact that he's in a little corner of the world and not the whole office.
Yes, yes.
So again, I am already currently drawing IPers, and I will not be drawing any more IPers because I'm a contract worker.
Yes, you are. That's the point.
And there was,
And IPERS defined that very clearly when it cost us over $25,000. And right now, You're not meeting that definition, not through your fault.
Okay.
You're not meeting that definition. I've been down that road. It was a big argument. It took a long time to resolve. And we ultimately lost.
Sure. Sure, but again, that gentleman had two different positions. One was covered under IPERS, one was not, right?
No,
No.
he was a contract employee in emergency medical or emergency management. That was his job.
Okay.
That's what he was hired to do at 20 hours a week under contract. He worked for another county the other 20 hours a week or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that it was not that the job that he performed or what he was doing, it was within the context of what was being provided to him to do the job.
Okay.
Okay? And so the argument was lost on the basis that we provided office space, not the computers, not the storage information, but that we provided office space. And yes, there was a vehicle provided, which is not true in this case. Those were the two deciding factors from IPERS. We appealed and they upheld it. It didn't go to district court. We could have, but we didn't. And that's the point. So that's where we're at. Okay, back to the discussion. Again, I'm not looking to make it punitive, but I'm looking for it to be, and I think you can make a legitimate argument at $100 a month, that little corner of the world that's being used, that is a reasonable amount, but it's not an unreasonable amount. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, yeah.
As the Board of Health has the contract with them, it seems that the privity of the office is with the Board of Health. And I assume the files, since he's working for the Board of Health, although they're Hart County, that the Board of Health will be responsible for handling that. And
Handling it how? It's our building.
providing for the space, either within the Board of Health housing or storage facilities. I don't know what they do with the files. I mean, we've got a lot of different government entities that have a part of it. And so part of the cost of what you do is a benefit to the county board that supplies part of the money, and to the others that supply the rest of the money from the different tax funds that come in to pay the Board of Health. So I think it's appropriate to set a rental, and I don't know what the value of that rental should be, but.
Well, I'm not
That's my
looking,
thought.
I'm not looking at charging a enormous fee on this either, just enough to say that he is paying rent so we don't get caught later on. So if you don't have anything more to add, Susie, I will say,
Yeah, I would say one thing. I'll say two things, Joe. I really wasn't aware of the situation. I wish I had been. The other thing I want to say is, when did Jerry's contract start last year? When did he start?
Year ago, right?
Yeah, October 15th.
Year ago?
October 15th, a year ago.
Okay, then I guess I assume he had a contract for a year then. Maybe we could start the new contract October 15th of this year.
What was the length of your contract?
It's actually 3 years, Susie.
Yeah. Oh, God, there's some guy who was.
It was, so. Any more to add, Susie?
I just wonder what the Board of Health thinks.
Well, they understood, as Jerry's right, it wasn't specifically brought up, but
Yeah.
we talked about the Iger situation and that he was a vendor and not an employee. And I kept emphasizing that, not just to him. But he cannot be treated as an employee. I mean, it's that simple. And he submits an invoice for billing,
Yeah.
which is proper.
Yeah.
He is a or was, I assume you still are a limited liability corporation,
Yeah.
So
It's
is-
S corp.
you know? So, he was a vendor hired to provide a service.
Okay, or a contract employee, which was it?
No, it's not a contract employee. It's not an employee in any way, shape, or form.
That's just a question, Lee.
Right. That's where we got into trouble before.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, to be sure, and then so that nobody misunderstands, previously, the individual that we're talking about was agreeable to that, you know, and wanted a contract as opposed to being, quote, an employee, but that's neither here nor there to this point in time. Jerry's not expressing that, nor has he ever.
Yeah.
So
In fact, I believe at the time, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I believe at the time, there was a time frame that would enter into question as even whether or not you could become one and enter into an IPERS arrangement after you had retired. Right,
Whether or not I could become an employee?
yeah,
Yeah, I could have became an employee. I just wouldn't have drew my IPERS. You would have started paying into
Right.
IPERS at that point then.
right.
For
But once you start drawing your IPERS, there's a certain length of time before you can enter back into IPERS employment.
I think it's 4 months. Maybe more.
So are we ready to move forward? No comment from Susie. I move that we charge the county sanitarian $100 a month rent in the building where he is currently locating, starting October 1st.
Well, can I ask that we amend that to November 1st to give the Board of Health an opportunity to
Okay,
review it?
I'll accept that.
Susie?
I do have a question, so maybe should we call him the employee as opposed to the county sanitarian? Because like, you know, kind of a concept there.
He's not an employee.
So why would we call him the county sanitarian?
Vendor then?
Environmental health vendor.
Environmental
Yeah.
health?
I think that'd be much better.
Okay. Is that the proper term, Jerry?
He's an environmental health specialist,
Okay, that's good
Right.
enough.
licensed, certified, whatever by the state. I'm not sure whether it's a license or certifications, I don't remember, but it doesn't matter.
Get my mumble jumble all down.
Mm-hmm.
I want to read that back. I just don't slap him.
I love it. She can read between the lines.
Okay,
Are you
so,
talking about me?
well, no,
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 no, no.
no. You don't have to put the cork back in the bottle. Just hang on. So we have a motion on the table to charge $100 a month rent, effective pursuant to conversation with the Board of Health on November 1st.
Joe made the motion, or did you make the motion?
I did, Susie. Joe.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 I will reach out to Christie, the Board of Health. And I'll CC Chris on it, even though she's technically not on the Board of Health, just want to keep her apprised. Number 4, discuss and consider
That's Jerry.
a refund warrant. I was in the packet. Oh. You said?
I've got mine.
Oh, I have it. I saw it, but no,
There you go, Lee.
no, I just. Moved by the Board of Supervisors, Jefferson County issue a refund warrant to Jason Gary and Tina Louise. Okay,
Nick team.
Okay. For taxes erroneously overpaid on parcel 12254008 in the amount of $160 for 2024.
So moved.
Second,
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Committee reports.
Oh.
Susie's favorite phone. Pop, pop, pop again.
hey, so, committee, sorry, the workforce board has now been combined and we're just starting joint meetings. The first meeting at noon today. So, I'll be there for a little bit and then off for other meetings. And as you know, and Joe will probably tell you, Madison Barnes thing, I got a lot of pictures, a lot of comments. I think it was a beautiful weekend for Madison Barnes, you know, for the Kids Day Parade. So anything you may have had to do with that or help with, thank you very much.
Everybody seems to think that it was a huge, huge success. More people than you've had before, from what I understand.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
So that's a credit to you and the Mazda Barnes board and Mindy and everybody that's involved in that preparation, Leon. So,
You know, I can say, if you would look at Elmer Workers, photos, or these drone photos, they're really good. It makes the barns look really good. At any rate.
so you're gonna climb the ladder to help paint? I'll take that as a no.
I just caught the bottle again, it's okay.
Joe?
I had
Wait a minute,
Marac
I'm sorry, I
meeting on
apologize.
Monday.
Susie, anything else?
Sorry.
No, nothing else.
Okay, Joe?
Kind of a slow week for me. I had Marac meetings on Monday and that was about it, besides other fascinating things that the board's probably not interested in.
Oh, okay. I'm kind of interested in the fascinating things, but. All right, I had a RPC, Area 15 Regional Planning, board meeting, and, one of the discussions we had at length was, as many of you are aware, Fairfield has brought in 2 homes from the Iowa prison industries. One is on 6th Street. Technically, I think the other one faces Jackson, but it's on the corner of Jackson and 7th Street. And they've done a wonderful job of landscaping. They've built a garage, they've added concrete walks and steps, and they've done a really nice job, and they do have a for sale sign up. But I was concerned about what the cost of that property would be. And I don't have a cost. But in the discussion, you know, I was told I would not be surprised if it was in the $250,000 range. And Matt Nauman of Area 15, who oversees the home side of it, Regional Housing Trust Fund that you worked with the other day, Joe, said, well, he hoped not, but he said they can't charge more than 10% above the actual total investment of the property. So whatever the investment of the property is, which would include the purchase of that home from Iowa Prison Industries, and of course, the investment would include the water, the sewer, the landscaping, everything that they did, they're only allowed to charge 10% above the actual total investment. So just, that was more or less just for a matter of record. We also approved a community development block grant for the city of Fairfield for a sewer project. And we're working with well, actually Ed Malloy and his partners for the Agassiz project in Ottumwa, which is a housing project and an apartment type complex similar to what they did at the old Loudon Stone. So I also had a 10:15 transit meeting. Prior to that, I had what's called a drive meeting, which is the 501c3 entity that we set up for donations for the Veterans Ride program that we have. And we're moving in directions to try and get legislators involved and other entities. We're talking about having one, if not two golf tournaments next spring after the legislative session is over with. To invite legislators and other folks to come and participate. We've got if you've seen it out on the table in other places in the different offices, there is a form there that you have what do they call that? When you can, the barcode, not barcode, QR code that you can do and donate to the Veterans Rides. We're going to establish a committee. I think that the committee will be comprised of our Veterans Affairs coordinators, or at least some of them, to help promote this. So we spent $160,000 last year on Veterans Rides. And again, want to let people know that these rides aren't just here in town. We take them to their medical appointments. We stay with them while they're at their medical appointments. If their medical appointments are out of state, we have taken them out of state to meet those medical appointments. So but if they just need to go to the grocery store, we do that too. It's from door back to door, that sort of thing. And we don't ask for any funds from the veterans. And back to the Agassiz project, Admiral Areas Partners will be applying for the third time for the low-income housing tax credit. Looks like it will happen this time. There was some extra hoops they had to jump through. Ottumwa School District has adopted an ambitious plan to build, Davis and Van Buren County School Districts have created construction trades programs. I would like the city of Fairfield, the Fairfield Community School District to look into that. So I don't know what all was involved in that. So I thought I'd reach out to the superintendent and talk with him. Maybe they've already in the works or something. I don't know. So that's all I had. So public comment. Okay, I do have a public comment, and I wrote this down, and I apologize for that, but I had some things I wanted to say, and I wanted to make sure that I said it right and that I got it all out there. So I am reading this to a certain extent, but I want everybody to know that what I say here gives me no particular pleasure. And to be sure, I believe it's a sad commentary about the state of affairs in Jefferson County. And I want everybody to know that I'm only speaking for myself and have not advised the other board members of my intent. And unfortunately, as many of you are aware, we have an ongoing dispute between the county attorney's office and the sheriff's office. And during this time, the issue has come before the board of supervisors to arbitrate one facet or another of the dispute. And the board has neither asked nor wanted to be a participant in the matter, and yet we're continually inserted in one way or another. And as always the case, there are two sides to any equation, and that is true in this equation as well. And unfortunately, both sides are not happy with decisions I've made regarding this issue. I've constantly been placed in the middle, which required me to choose sides more than once and put me in a position to have to decide a matter that can have significant detrimental impacts on folks who I've long considered friends, including my fellow board members. While I realize that as elected officials, we sign up for the prospect of making difficult decisions, and I'm fully prepared for the chore. But in this case, and with this issue, there is absolutely zero benefit to the residents of Jefferson County, or for that matter, to the participants in the conflict. I have stated repeatedly my desire for participants to sit down and resolve the issue for the benefit of all concerned. And while it is true that the county attorney did reach out to the sheriff and inquire as to having a meeting at the sheriff's office with this attorney present, on advice of counsel, the sheriff did not accept the offer. However, given the total erosion of trust between the sheriff and the county attorney, it is completely understandable from my perspective why one would not participate in the sit down, and that too is a sad commentary. The issue between the sheriff's office and the county attorney's office has cost me longtime friends, and worse, has caused some residents of Jefferson County, whom I was elected to represent, to lose confidence in me, and that, my friends, is a terrible feeling. And while I intend to run for re-election, that knowledge makes an already difficult slog just that much more difficult. Brief comment on the judge's ruling in the case. While I believe that professional protocol would dictate a response to the emails the sheriff received from the county attorney, the lack of response was determined to not constitute a lack of honesty or candor, as was suggested by the county attorney. However, the judge did state that the county attorney violated statute, which is a nice legal term for violated the law. So I do not think anyone's hands are totally clean in this issue. So I arrive at this juncture to state categorically that while we have expended funds on legal expenses on this issue, and are currently resolving an administrative issue within the sheriff's office using outside counsel and a private entity to conduct the administrative review, I will not support the future use of property tax dollars towards this dispute between the county attorney and the sheriff in any context. Furthermore, I will recommend and urge the Board of Supervisors to review and consider a reduction in the budget of the Jefferson County Attorney to restore funds already expended to the general fund and restrict the potential use of further funds to prosecute this issue, including the use of county personnel in their time. He has been asked on multiple occasions in the past to submit an accounting of expenditures to litigate this issue, and if none have been forthcoming. I'm extremely saddened that I've arrived at this point, believing that something of this nature would never have occurred in Jefferson County. And once again, I implore all parties to stop this madness. Thank you. If there's no further public comments, I would approve a motion to allow claims and approve reports.
Have you seen the claims?
I have not.
They're right there.
Let me tell Susie what the amount is. Susie, the amount is $91,351.88.
Thank you.
So moved to accept claims.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Note that there is an 11:30 meeting with Linda Cummins. Thank you. I don't know why I struggle with that one. And also a 1 p.m. meeting with Attorney Jason Palmer.
Closed session.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay.
And please note that there is a canvass of the election for Fairfield Third Ward vacancy at 1:30 on Thursday, October 2nd. And Abby's going to call me at 1:15 to make sure I don't forget her.
But that would probably be advisable for Abby to do that.
Okay.
And let's all hope you don't have a tie again.
Yeah, okay. Yes, exactly, Susie. Okay. Did we vote on the claims?
Yes.
Yeah,
Motion to adjourn until 11:30.
So moved.
yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All right, so I'm gonna call this meeting to order and I don't know who to open it up to, I guess.
I didn't get my call. Go on ahead, I'll listen in.
Okay, well, I guess if it's all right with everybody, because Skylar, I apologize, I have a terrible time pronouncing your last name. So I'm just gonna open it up to you. You have some concerns about paragraph 2 on page 2.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And it's fine to call me Skylar. The Limpcomen is always a hard name to pronounce, so I get that all the time. So Skylar is just fine. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having this meeting this morning to discuss the representation agreement. I know that we've had a couple prior meetings, and I was not able to be at the one last Wednesday because I was out of town for other matters. I just want to start off by just noting a little background about myself. I do these cases all over the state of Iowa. I've done them for employees, employers, civil service commissions. I've got a-
Excuse me, Lee, I cannot hear very well.
Okay. Skylar, can I get you to, can we turn that volume up any? Hang on a second.
Thank you.
Let's see how that works. Okay.
Is that better?
Thank you.
Can you hear it now?
Yes.
Okay.
I handle these cases all over the state of Iowa. I've done a number of these for other counties. I've done quite a few of these in a variety of contexts under the new and the old statute. So I would say I'm pretty experienced in this area. I also do quite a bit of work for ICAP in defending these cases and handle a lot of different municipality cases. And I know we've previously represented the county and the sheriff's office and other county officials and other matters. So I just wanted to provide that little bit of background. I'll get right to the representation agreement. I did listen in on a prior board meeting, and this representation agreement is very limited. It's limited to 2 employment investigations that are covered by the Peace Officer Bill of Rights, which is Iowa Code Chapter 80F or Section 80F.1. This representation agreement is very clear that it does not include any appeals, litigation, or anything like that. That would be something that if, an employee that is covered by the Peace Officer Bill of Rights, if there's an investigation, they're found to violate policy, and they're disciplined and they disagree with that discipline, for example, a deputy sheriff, they could appeal that to the Civil Service Commission. So the appeal to a Civil Service Commission or anything beyond that would not be covered by this representation agreement. We are strictly dealing with the investigations, the pre-discipline process there. So I wanted to make that very clear. The paragraph on page 1 that was inserted by the county attorney's office, I don't necessarily have a problem with that because I really don't see that scenario coming up. But for me, that really doesn't concern anything with my representation in this case because it largely concerns, the event of either appeal, litigation, things like that that would be triggered down the road because the county attorney has a statutory duty if there's an appeal to civil service to represent the Civil Service Commission. So no issue there. The first paragraph there where it strikes out the sheriff's office where it says attorney-client privilege and confidentiality. I went back and I looked at not only the ethical rules and the Iowa Code Section 622.10 and some case law on attorney-client privilege, and then looked at the applicable confidentiality section under 80F.1 subsection 20. And I think that for the purposes of this investigation, this very limited scope representation here, that the county is essentially seeking independent counsel under the statute for these employment investigations. And in doing that, the county is paying the bill. They would be retaining our services, right? But the decider on these issues is the office of the sheriff or the sheriff's office, not, Sheriff Richmond, Bart Richmond in his personal capacity, but he is the commanding officer of the sheriff's office. Those are officers under the meaning of the statute that are employed. They're within that office, so he is the decider in that case. And so when we look at that, I believe that privilege and confidentiality does exist for these limited purposes with the sheriff's office. And I'll explain that a little bit further. Ultimately, what I'm asking for is on page 2, and I'll just pull that up here. Page 2, the top of page 2, the inserted paragraph that starts with the firm will consult with the county attorney prior to representing the client or its officers in any filings, hearings, so on and so forth. And then it ends with the firm will also copy the county attorney on any communication between the firm and the client or its officers. I'm asking that that paragraph be deleted out from the agreement, and here's why. So the first reason, it was my understanding that I was being sought for independent legal counsel. And it was my understanding that basically that was being done to separate the county attorney's office out from these investigations and the pre-discipline process and provide independent counsel in coordination with John Thomas from Workforce Solutions as an independent investigator. Um, Obviously, the sheriff's office could do the investigation, but they'd opted to ask for an independent investigator, which you guys hired. And so I think that's a great idea. It's a great practice to do that in these types of situations. But by that language, it seems like the county attorney's office isn't out of it. And then it seems to run contrary to the independent, process that we've talked about here. And so I guess the question would become, is the county attorney's office, is it out of these matters unless they would become appealed or litigated? Because that was my prior understanding. So because of the statute, excuse me, if the employee would appeal it, then by statute, the county attorney's office would have to represent the Civil Service Commission and be back in. Obviously, I would be out of at that point because you guys would submit the claim to ICAP, is my understanding from the chairman. And so I wouldn't have anything to do with that. I would just be doing the investigation and pre-discipline process piece. So I guess for the independent counsel, the question really becomes, is the county attorney's office in or are they out for the purposes of the investigation and the pre-discipline process? Going back to the attorney-client privilege issue, I have a concern about that because I see all the time, representing municipalities, that people try to pierce attorney-client privilege and get access to information that they probably shouldn't have, right? The sheriff, obviously, is a county official. You are the board, so you are the county as a legal matter. You guys are viewed as the same thing. It's viewed as Jefferson County. But the county board, under the statute, is hiring outside counsel for the sheriff's office and is paying the bill in that situation. The county, as in the board, is not otherwise involved in the matter because it's the sheriff that's ultimately going to decide what comes about from these investigations, whether he agrees with the investigation, whether he doesn't, and if there's any discipline to be imposed, what that is, what that should be, so on and so forth. So that's where I come back to, for the purposes of this limited representation agreement, the sheriff's office, literally the office of the sheriff, is the client. And I think, in really thinking about what my phone call with Mr. Molding last week, and then looking at everything and thinking about this further, I need to be able, as independent counsel, to communicate with the sheriff regarding these matters, and he needs to be able to independently, openly communicate with me. That's the whole point of being independent from the county attorney's office, at least as I see it or understood it. Now, I understand that there's a lot of disagreement, dispute. There's prior pending litigation between the sheriff and the county attorney's office. I've told both of them I want no part of any of that. I do not want to be in the middle of that. I do not want to be in any way, shape, or form involved in that. So having me independent and removed from that mitigates any issues of getting crosswise or anything, whether it's a perception, whether it happens or not, it just keeps everything clean. And then we're not having other issues. Again, I also have concerns about, whether attorney-client privilege in those situations would be waived. I don't know the answer to that question because, frankly, as I think you folks know, some of the things that you're dealing with are questions of first impression. There's not an Iowa Supreme Court opinion on these things because they've not been litigated. But I certainly don't want to be the first one to try and then end up in years of litigation or, and I certainly don't want you to be in that position and spending, a lot of money trying to sort these questions out. So that was part of my reasoning on the attorney-client privilege issue, is keeping it clean. And then the third point was the confidentiality of the information. The law requires the information, the sheriff's office to keep the information confidential. So that's the complaint, the statements, things like that. There have been some reported court cases where, let's say that a city, they include in the report things that the employee said in the investigation interview or in a pre-discipline hearing. Well, that was determined and said to be an improper violation of the confidentiality piece because they disclosed that information in these cases, and there's other cases pending on that right now. So my thought process is on the independent counsel point is keeping it within the people that only need to know for those purposes. And right now, the only person that I see that would need to know would be obviously John Thomas as the investigator, the sheriff, as the commanding officer of the sheriff's office, and then me. And that would keep that obviously the employees too and their legal counsel, but that would keep that information confidential. I don't believe that legally I could or the sheriff could share information that falls under that code section with you as the board, or anybody else for that matter. Now, I think that there's things that could change that, right? If an employee appeals it, that appeal proceeding is a public proceeding and things could come out in that appeal proceeding. But we're not talking about that because my representation agreement does not include any appeals or litigation. So all those things that were talked about previously are not things that involve me. Those are things that would happen down the road if they happen at all. I'm hopeful that we get these matters resolved and that there wouldn't be, any appeals or litigation. But as you know, and as Mr. Lee, is it Dement?
Yes.
Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. As you indicated, everybody sues everybody these days, and I look at things the exact same way. I'm a city councilman myself, and I just always assume that we're going to get sued, and so I'm looking at it from that perspective of what arguments could somebody have if they wanted to try to come at this down the road, because the whole goal is to keep you from that occurring in the future. And then the last point about the confidentiality, that's the officer's right. And I'm saying officer because it's defined under the statute, but we need to make sure that that law is followed. And I just don't feel comfortable with not having this exact scenario and without having a Iowa Supreme Court opinion or the Court of Appeals opinion on point. I just don't feel comfortable going down that road because I think it opens everything up, for some future argument. Maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe I could be wrong, but I have to be cautious with these things because if I didn't, you would say, Skylar, why didn't you say that ahead of time? And I definitely don't want that. Again, there's no litigation or appeal right now. We're just in the investigation phase. So we don't really need to know either, but we have to think about that. And then I know that the sheriff addressed some of the benefits of independent counsel 2 meetings ago when this was discussed, when you originally voted. I see it as a way of protecting all involved, mitigating risk, keeping things clean, and I know that things can get messy really easy. But by just saying Skylar's handling the investigations for these two matters and the pre-discipline process independently, that keeps everything really clean in my view. I do these agreements across the state. I've done a lot of different places, employees, employers, municipalities, all that. I've done them with the state. I've not seen any similar language, elsewhere. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's not something that's typically in our representation agreements. And again, I just don't want to end up in any, disputes, disagreements. I do not want to be in the middle of anything. I want to come in, handle these two employment investigations, deal with the pre-discipline process, advise the sheriff, let him make his decisions, and then my part would be done, absent something else, that I'm missing there under the agreement. And then I would be out of it. So if they appeal, then that would be ICAP. If you choose to do that, I would be done. Or if the meter stops running at $5,000, like you indicated previously, I'd be done. I hope it doesn't cost that much, but you never know what people are going to do. And there's videos and, a lot of different evidence to look at here. And at the end of the day, I just don't, even if take all the other stuff, push that aside. I just don't feel comfortable with that language in paragraph 2 being in there. It just really puts me in a difficult position that I just frankly don't want to be in. And I understand that, you guys, somebody had indicated at one of your prior meetings about being in the middle. I certainly appreciate that and understand that. I certainly don't want to be in the middle either. I want to do my job and then, be done with this. So that's where I'm coming from. That's why I'm asking that that be removed. And I'm happy to answer any questions from any of you fine folks.
I do have a couple, not so, they're kind of generic, I guess you'd say. So where my concern comes in is in the event that it moves beyond your role, and it does go to the next level where there's an appeal filed or lawsuit or whatever. My thinking behind this and agreeing to insert that paragraph. If we don't have something that says, we get this stuff, not legal terms, obviously, then can we access it in a lawsuit if we're sued?
So litigation is different. So there's actually a case called Dunn v. Doe's. It was out of the Southern District of Iowa. It was a Des Moines case. And what the Southern District of Iowa ruled was, and there's been other court rulings on this too, that confidentiality protection that I referred to under subsection 20 does not apply to discovery or litigation. So somebody could subpoena it, for example, somebody could get it in discovery, and if there is litigation, and something's going to go to trial, you can't, like, if you get into a car accident and you're claiming that you were injured, and you have medical records, you can't keep your medical history out of a public trial or from discovery. It's the exact same thing. That would be crazy. That applies here too. So to answer your question, that litigation or an appeal would change that. And that's why I don't think that that paragraph belongs there, because right now we are not at that point, and my representation agreement does not cover appeals or litigation. So you guys would get that, and the public would have access to that information if at some point in time in the future it became a public hearing, an appeal, or whatever.
Skylar, I gotta jump in here. Are you talking about the county being entitled to its own investigative records if we're sued through a discovery process? Like we would subpoena our own records?
No, I'm just saying that if somebody
No.
else wanted those records, that's the only way that they would be able to get them, like a third party. Somebody couldn't do an open records request for the records and
Right.
get those under the statute.
Someone adverse to the county.
Correct. They
What happens, can I raise a question? What would happen if you're only signed on for 20 hours or $90 an hour for your assistant, legal assistant? What would happen if the county's $5,000 is expended only halfway through this? And the county attorney's office, we're responsible legally under the law to handle this matter. The sheriff clearly has the authority to do the investigation himself or to refer it to counsel, as is being done in this case. But we need some way for the county, as the county's lawyer, to know what's going on and what's happening. We want to stay informed just so that we can know where the case is. If we have to step in, it makes no sense for it to all, where we have to try and discover what's been happening. It's very important that this matter be resolved as soon as we can. The people are being paid their full pay during all the time since this originally started. We want to see it proceed as soon as possible for economy for the county. And
it seems important that we know what's happening in the county's legal interests.
So there's multiple things there. One, the $5,000, I would hope that it would not go beyond that. Um, Generally speaking, I mean, there are two cases involved here. That was my kind of concern before. I mean, I do officer involved shootings all over the state, and you know, they don't usually ever exceed $10,000. Usually they're between 5 and 10. I don't think that that would happen here where, you know, we would have a situation where the 5,000 would be exceeded. But, you know, if there was some situation, I would just come back to the board and say, this is the situation that came up. You know, you guys can vote on it. I would most likely say that we would get this thing done in short order for $5,000 or under, because what we're dealing with is the investigation piece and the pre-discipline hearings. So public employees, if they're going to be disciplined, have a constitutional right to a pre-discipline hearing. That's the Loudermill case. And so, you know, what we're talking about is, you know, a limited amount of work. If that happens, though, you know, we were getting close, I would circle back. I just don't foresee that coming up at this point. I can't guarantee, though, you know, what's going to happen with any employees or anything, but, you know, that's where I'm at right now with it. I mean, that'd be 20 hours worth of work. You know, generally pre-discipline hearings are an hour, you know, I mean, that's on average. I've had them go up to 3 hours. So you have two employees and there's 2 hours right there, you know, so I just don't see that coming up. On the part about being informed, so I went back and reread the statute 331.756, duties of the county attorney, and in as I read the code, there has to be a pending, you know, case, whether it's litigation, because it says in all cases and proceedings in the courts of the county to which the state or the county is a party. So I don't think that that applies here because if, for example, the sheriff's office just wanted to do this on their own without legal counsel, they would not have to involve the county attorney's office. And because of the confidentiality piece, I don't believe that the county attorney on its own would be able to, you know, be involved in something prior to discipline. And this is an open question, mind you. The situation that you are dealing with has not came up, to my knowledge, before, and there's no reported court cases on it. So I'm saying this with a caveat that, you know, a judge or, you know, the Iowa Supreme Court could do whatever they wanted if that case came up. I don't think that that's gonna happen. I would hope that there's no appeals or no litigation, but again, I can't guarantee what somebody is going to do. And I certainly appreciate the county attorney's position and talking to him about wanting to be informed, you know, on things that are going on. But in this particular situation, during the investigation and the pre-discipline process, I just don't see a way. I don't see a way for that to happen because it defeats the whole purpose of independent counsel. You know, the board can say for this matter, for the investigation, the pre-discipline process, Skylar's handling that. If it goes to anything beyond that, obviously then by statute, if it's a civil service appeal, the county attorney is involved and they would get the information during that process. But particularly the emails, you know, communications or whatever, you know, for example, if I'm on the phone with the county attorney, if I'm on the phone with the sheriff, is the county attorney going to want to be on the phone too to discuss, you know, strategy, tactics, what's going on, recommendations, advice, things like that? Because I believe that the whole issue that I don't want to be involved in is there's a pending matter between the county attorney and the sheriff. And that was kind of part of the reason why the sheriff was asking that this be separated. I'll let him speak for himself. Again, though, I do not want to be involved in that. I do not want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. That's why I think being independent is easiest for everybody.
And I would concur with that. Completely separate matters. The one thing has nothing to do with the other. And I don't know that's why Skylar was brought on board here, but I guess, yeah, the sheriff can speak to that. Completely separate issues and improper to even consider one and the other at the same time.
So to go back to my just for my own, and I apologize for being ignorant on these matters, but my overriding concern, to be quite honest, is that if it came to litigation I guess what I want to know is somebody to tell me, whether it's Skylar, whether it's Chauncey, and it doesn't matter, somebody to tell me that when it comes to litigation, all the pertinent information that might be considered confidential is available for us to defend ourselves in that litigation.
100%. Absolutely.
And I think that's what kind of, there's some crossing of maybe communication lines getting crossed here, Lee. There's one team here, and that's Team County. The contract hires Skylar's firm to represent the county in what is a relatively straightforward, or I guess technically two straightforward employment issues. I think Skylar's right. I think the sheriff could have handled this on his own. I certainly, I think it was appropriate to hire outside investigator to look into these facts. But yeah, there is no statutory obligation that we go outside for this. But honestly, I'm shocked that we're still here, that we're still having these conversations. It's almost 2 months have passed since this incident. This could have been addressed a month ago or longer. But I think it's important to emphasize, you're right, Lee. The client here is the county. The county is hiring Skylar's firm, who has a strong background in ADF litigation and ADF issues. I think you're one of the state's leading, you have substantial knowledge about the statute. And us hiring an outside expert to assist with this, I was opposed to it. I think it was an enormous waste of taxpayer funds, but it's where we are. But that's who we hired. We hired Skylar, we being the county, in order to protect the county's interest here. And I do have some concerns when Skylar's saying the issue is, I feel like communications about this case between myself and the sheriff, I'm putting words in your mouth, sir, but words between you and the sheriff might not be open if there was sharing of that information with the other legal representative for the county. I don't understand why that would be, and it does raise more questions than it answers for me, because again, the goal here is to protect the county. The county has to take an action, and doing so with appropriate legal representation is always a good idea. But if we're venturing into the realm of the employing officer has personal concerns over other individuals reading the deliberations or considerations of the employment decision, we're way outside of the scope here. The scope here is protecting the county during a determination of appropriate discipline. And if the real concern is protecting the considerations, that's just not where we are. So it's just confusing and a little bit concerning that the major question that I think Skylar has is whether or not the other legal representative for the county, the only one with statutory duties to protect the county attorney's office, should be looped in. If this was a Fortune 500 company hiring outside counsel to conduct an internal audit of their practices, it would be not only expected and normal, but completely de rigueur and regular process to loop in corporate counsel during the scope of the investigation. That's a completely normal process. The confidentiality exists more between my office, the board, and the sheriff than it does with any outside counsel. So if the concerns are the statutory confidentialities in ADF, that exists already. So I don't know. That's the main concern I have with this whole deliberative process, is there's nothing to hide. And if Skylar, or anybody else is concerned about protecting confidentiality of information, what is being protected? The county should know what's going on inside the county, right? So that's my major concern with the fear over looping us in on deliberations. What do you got to hide, I guess, is the major question that raises for me. So
We are all sworn to protect the confidentiality of our clients. County Attorney Molding and the assistant county attorneys are all sworn to confidentiality. We want to make this be the best result possible for the county, but we just want to know what is happening, just to be copied on the information so that we can follow it while it goes along. It's not gonna blow up, and only in a few small percentage of cases does it ever become necessary to have that. But it's a good insurance policy, and people like to have insurance.
So on paragraph 2, Skylar, on paragraph 2 on page 2, where it says the firm will. It says the firm will consult with the county attorney prior to representing the client or its officers in any filings. So I want to stop right there for a minute. And I understand maybe the bottom sentence where it says the firm will also copy the county attorney on any communication between the firm and the client or its officers. So let's set that aside for a moment. Where I'm at is, and again, I know you guys have tried to clarify it for me, and sometimes you have better luck with a brick wall, but where it says the firm will consult with the county attorney prior to representing the client or its officers in any filings, hearings, proceedings, or any activities in federal, state, or local courts. And so what you're saying is, or what this is saying is, as I read it, in layman's terms, is, hey, if it goes to that, then we just want all the information.
Sure, and I completely understand that. I don't think that that paragraph was necessary just in the first place because my representation agreement doesn't cover if it goes to that. I'm only here for the investigation and the pre-discipline process, which the sheriff is going to be the custodian of the records anyway. He's going to have his own decision and all that stuff. I mean, that's already going to be on the county's servers and things like that. My issue with that, it's a kind of a technical issue. Most of that paragraph or that sentence that you read really just concerns the courts. So where my technical issue is on hearing proceedings and activities. And the reason why is because the Loudermill hearing is a hearing under the case law. And if you look at the Peace Officer Bill of Rights, the statute, there it specifically uses the word proceedings, hearings, and I've addressed this with the county attorney in email. That language is a little bit too broad. If it just even ended at if it ended at local courts, period, I don't think that that's as much of an issue. The copied on all filings, hearings, again, that's not going to come up because that's outside the scope. I'm not filing anything, but there could be a pre-discipline hearing, and then the word activities, that's very broad. So that's where, if we got rid of that one part of that sentence, I mean, I don't have any problem with it because my agreement doesn't cover litigation or appeals, but it does cover pre-discipline hearings.
So what you're saying is that if it stopped at state or local courts,
I have no problem with it then.
so let me ask you another question or come at it from a different direction. I'm not trying to be problematic here, and I apologize, but I like to have as much information as I can get.
Absolutely.
So in your expertise, is there a concern that this paragraph or portions of this paragraph would indicate the disclosure of information that may cause us a problem down the road prior to any potential additional hearing or litigation or whatever?
Yes, and here's why. I don't want to get into all of the case law. I'll just tell you that the statute, like any statute's not perfect. I mean, it goes through the legislative process and how they make the sausage, but it's not a perfect law. So if hypothetically an employee wants to come back and they want to file a lawsuit, they do not, under this 80F chapter, they do not sue the county. They sue the sheriff, the chief of police, the lieutenant, the sergeant, whoever that they believe violated their rights. And arguably, they could sue the county attorney, although there's been some legal dispute about that. Because I believe that they could, on the confidentiality provision, sue the county attorney. Other provisions in there, they can't, but I believe that on the confidentiality provision, I believe that they could. So the whole purpose of what I'm saying about that is let's not go down that road and get into an issue because at least one of the employees has an attorney. And when you know that somebody else has an attorney and this person is a very good attorney, we don't want, and I would never want to put the county or any of its officials in a position where somebody could have an argument to make against them. And so by doing that, in my mind, it's mitigating the risk. That's my point with that. I don't want to even open up the issue. That's where I'm coming from. Because frankly, these are 2-3 years of litigation. It just seems nonsensical to open up that issue for something that, as the county attorney indicated, this isn't, a super controversial officer involved shooting or, this isn't, something, the facts are going to be the facts. They're straightforward. But you don't want to get into a situation where you violate somebody's rights and otherwise you do everything right. And then it comes back because, oh, we didn't follow this piece of that law. And it could invalidate the whole thing. Like, I don't want that to happen. That's where I'm coming from.
So would our human resources, personnel be kept apprised of certain aspects of it without?
Sure. Absolutely. So, for example, it's a public record right now. If a public employee gets terminated, it's a public record that that person was terminated and the reasons for their termination, right? That's in 22.15. And so, and they have to be provided that notice ahead of time. So if that person, would be terminated, that would have to be disclosed. Or if, for example, there would be a day off, obviously there's information that would have to be disclosed. I'm just speaking about the limited information that's covered by that statute, the complaint, the officer statements, things like that. It's not that the county is going to be completely out of the loop. It's not that HR or the county attorney. I'm just saying that limited subsection on that piece.
So if we were to strike everything after local courts, you would be okay with that?
Absolutely. And I would get this thing moving forward. As the county attorney indicated, there is a timeliness to these. I mean, they have to be completed within a reasonable period of time. And I think we could get moving, get this thing rolling and get my portion of it done in short order.
Can I ask a question to you, Skylar? Do you think that the board can delegate to you some type of heightened level of confidentiality that does not already exist between the county attorney, the county supervisors, and the county sheriff just by nature of their positions? I think the answer is no, right?
No,
So any concerns
I'm not
about,
arguing that.
yeah, so any concerns about confidentiality, anything that would be imputed to you would be imputed to the attorney for the county anyway, right? As far as confidentiality goes?
Well, if you're involved in the matter, that's where the independent thing comes back in, because I do believe that they can delegate and say, on this particular matter, we're seeking independent legal representation from an outside attorney. And so that's where I said, are you in it or are you out of it? And that was where I was interpreting things and under the understanding that by having outside independent counsel, essentially, that would mean for the investigation piece and the part that's covered by ADF and the pre-discipline process, I would be handling that piece. And so that's where I was coming from on that.
So if the contract stipulated that there would be information provided through CC or copied on all communications, but no input, no direct input, would that satisfy your concerns?
I don't think so because of that ADF 1 subsection 20. I mean, that's where my hang up is, frankly, Chauncey, is that.
But that's the confidentiality thing that we just addressed that essentially exists with you as well as my office and the supervisors.
I don't believe I don't believe that it exists with you if the county board of supervisors is saying we're hiring independent outside counsel for these matters. That's where I'm coming from. Because again, the sheriff could just say, I'm going to do it on my own without, consulting, legal counsel from either my firm or you and just do it. Obviously, that would
It would be a
not
bad
be the
idea.
best scenario. I mean, I always think that whether you're an employee or the employer, you should always have legal counsel involved in everything to mitigate the risk. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think it'd be a terrible idea if, like, let's say the board decided not to sign this contract, and then the sheriff decided instead of consulting with you or my office, never mind, I'm just going to do this on my own. That'd be a terrible idea.
And that's where my concern is that we would be at, and I'm trying to thread a needle here, and again, I don't want to be involved in anything else. I've said that a million times, I'll say it again. I think this is these are two separate, distinct, matters that we can handle, get them done, moving forward, and be done with them. Whatever the outcome is. We haven't even got to that point though, because we're in the investigation phase right now.
So the inserted paragraph on page 1, would that stay?
I don't have a problem with a problem with that.
Because it does say above that, the client agrees that the firm and its attorneys will exercise independent professional judgment and will provide the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office with advice and counsel without interference, and that's your language.
Yep. And that's our standard language that we put in,
Right.
any agreement like this.
And then section 2 there, on the scope of services, none of that was changed. And it says attorney and firm will not be obligated to, once the cap is, we know that, so. But it's pretty, says any discipline hearings or proceedings that may arise, other related discipline meetings, hearings, or proceedings. Representation includes participation in the administrative matters, reviewing evidence and policies. Representation will include providing advice, recommendations, guidance, and counsel through the completion of any administrative investigation and proceedings, if applicable. Representation may include other representation activities, including drafting or revising documents, correspondence, research, communicating with employees, legal counsel, and/or representatives, communicating with those involved, so on and so forth. What I'm asking categorically is that information available to us moving forward if it goes beyond the scope of the administrative review process?
Yeah.
That
So like if it goes to like a litigated or
is ICAP entitled to that information if they're representing us?
Yep. And to be frank with you, sometimes, and I can't speak for ICAP, but yes, that's the simple answer to that question. A lot of times what will happen is, because this happens, I mean, I've had this happen with other cities and counties. So there was another case where I handled for a sheriff's office, a deputy sheriff. I did the investigation piece with them. The deputy ultimately was terminated and appealed it to the Civil Service Commission. And the county had turned in the claim to ICAP, and they had basically assigned me just to continue on. So it was one attorney all the way through. That does happen, and that could happen here. I'm not saying that wouldn't happen, but you can have continuity of counsel too. And at that point in time, it's not an issue. The only reason why that language was in there was just to keep it very narrow in scope, so you knew what you were on the meter for with your $5,000.
But why
As far
wouldn't
as-
you want continuity of counsel with the county's attorney, I guess? I hate to keep beating the dead horse here. I'm flummoxed by the idea that we're trying to fight a legal battle and protect ourselves in the best way possible, but also tying one hand behind your back by boxing out the county's attorney's office from having the information best at fingertip in order to defend. It's wild. And when you say this hasn't been addressed before, you know what? It probably maybe should have been addressed before, but this is not an area of well-trodden ground. It's crazy that we're even having this conversation, frankly. We're all on the same page.
Well, the paragraph that was inserted on page 1 at the bottom says nothing in this contract is intended to interfere with or impede the county attorney's obligation to his statutory duties. And then if we leave in on page 2, second paragraph, the firm will consult with the county attorney prior to representing the client or its officers in any filings, hearings, proceedings, or any activities in any federal, state, or local court. But the contract does state clearly that this ends, it's a pre-suit. Poor choice of words, but a pre-suit operation, a pre-suit. So I've done a lot of questions and talking here. Joe, Susie?
I'm listening.
Go on ahead, Susie.
No, I said I'm just listening.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Well, sounds like you're moaning too. Everybody's laughing at me.
Perhaps you should get a hearing appointment.
Okay. So, I'm on that, I questioned this second paragraph at our last meeting last week, whether that needed to be there or not. So I would be happy to leave in the first part of it and cross off the rest of it. If that's what Skylar would like to see done.
So to stop,
Cut it off after the federal, state, and local courts. And just eliminate the rest of that, because if it does go on, everybody can get a copy of stuff and be brought up to speed then. It's attorney-client privilege. So how
Yeah.
far out are you gonna go on this?
I don't know what you mean, Joe, and I'm just not sure where you're going.
On the attorney-client?
Yeah.
Well, most of that stuff is between the attorney and the client.
Which is.
Who's the client, Joe?
Bart.
No,
No.
No.
that's been my,
The office of the sheriff. It's the office, because it's not, that's where, this is part of the issue with these code sections. It's a mess. It's not, I'm not representing Bart. I want to be very clear about that. It's the office of the sheriff, which is, it's an official, right? But it's just the same as Chauncey. Chauncey holds the office of the county attorney. So, the representation is not of Chauncey in any individual personal capacity. If somebody was going to represent him, you're representing the office. So that's where the language becomes, in some situations, it's synonymous, right? In some situations, it's not. But for this purpose, and I'm just saying it, for this purpose, where we're talking about the investigation and we're talking about the potential pre-discipline process under these code sections, it is the office of the sheriff, or I just say sheriff's office because it's short, of Jefferson County. That's the long way of saying it.
The client's Jefferson County.
Yeah, I stand corrected. I meant the office of the sheriff, but I referred to Bart.
Yeah, because I don't want to be in any, I'm not, I know you said Bart, I just want to be very clear. I'm not representing Bart in any personal capacity. This is not in any way, me representing Bart in anything, involving Chauncey or adversarial with Chauncey. So I just want to have that on the record because that's not the intent of any of this.
Okay, I stand corrected. I'm sorry.
So are any other questions or concerns or? Bart?
Can the county, through the county attorney's office, get access to all of your information in the future, including matters that you handle up to the time while you're doing your independent investigation while it's going on? I know you save those and store those within your law firm and trust your other lawyers in your law firm not to violate confidentiality. But can the county attorney, what is your understanding of when the county attorney would have access to that material?
So I think that for example, if it goes down to an appeal, litigation, anything like that, no issues with getting, for example, I'll give you a general example here. So if somebody's going to be disciplined, there's a notice that's provided to them, usually it's titled like notice of predisciplinary hearing. and it tells them on this date, this time, a pre-discipline hearing, is scheduled. This is what the allegations were. This is some of the findings. Basically, it's a summary. And, that goes to the employee. That stuff, unless it includes their statements, which generally the summaries do not, but that is not an issue at all. Now, let's say that I write a letter to the sheriff and I say, here are options, or, here's my advice or recommendations, which would be my work product. At some point in time, let's just say that there's third party litigation or whatever, that would absolutely be something that could become available, if that would occur.
Does
But
the county attorney have access to it prior to litigation? That's my question.
and
Is
if there's
it available, just as it is available to other people in your law firm? Say you were not around and we needed to find out what had happened. If a claim is made of impropriety by one of the people without litigation being filed, but of one of the people that might have been involved in this, how does the county get that? And do we have full access to that? Or do you just give access to that to people that are in the office of the sheriff?
So you're saying there's two parts of that. The simple answer to that question is if there's an appeal or if there's litigation, that's something that could be out there, right? That could be go to the county
How
attorney.
about pre-litigation?
Pre-litigation, like no claim, no demand, nothing like that, then I would say no, because it's in the investigation phase or the pre-discipline phase at that point. But if it was after that point and there's an appeal, or if there's a legal demand that's made, because sometimes people send demands before they file suits, or whatever, that I think would be the triggering thing. We're just talking about confidentiality, and that process during the investigation and during the pre-discipline hearings, unless there was something else that happened. So
What is the harm for me as the attorney for the county if I'm going to be possibly handling future matters in this? What is the harm of me seeing the process and following it from afar, viewing your emails and work process?
So again, it goes back to the confidentiality piece. These peace officers have unique statutes that are protecting them, and it's basically like a need to know. If the county attorney doesn't have any involvement in the process because the board has hired independent legal counsel, then there would be no need for the county attorney to have that information. The need would arise if there's an appeal, there's litigation, something like that, a triggering thing. For example, if the county attorney just wanted to know what happened with these employees, that's one thing. If the county attorney wanted to have, wanted to know what the statements were during the interviews, that would be a different scenario, because what's the need? The county attorney is not representing the county in anything because there's nothing pending. The whole point is
Providing this
process.
information, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but would you be providing this information that's confidential to the sheriff during your investigation?
Well, no, I would already have it, because that information would be something that happened and the sheriff would already have it. So that's the stuff that John Thomas is doing. So for example, there's an interview of an employee that's conducted, I could get into the weeds all day with you, but I think in certain situations, to answer the question in the shortest, most succinct way, in certain situations, the county attorney gets access. In certain situations, it doesn't. I think if you look at it from a perspective, if all this gets resolved and there's nothing that comes out of it, the short answer is no. If something comes about of it, then it's maybe. If it's litigation, I think that's a lot easier of a question. There's a gray area there in the middle, and I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen, or again, it's a mess, and it's these are open questions. We could go hypothetical all day. I've tried to cover the things that are the most possible based on my experience, and to try to mitigate risk to the county, to the sheriff's office, to all involved, to everybody. From my perspective, it's just one perspective, You know, there could be disagreement with that, and that's fine. People can agree to disagree, but without having, you know, some case law or some guidance, I just don't want to end up in that position. I do not feel comfortable with that. That's the bottom line of where I'm coming from. And that's just my preference. And knowing what I know about these cases and how they work, I just don't feel comfortable with that. So that's why I'm asking for that change.
But you are going to provide that to the sheriff's office during the investigation or during your service as counsel?
No, I don't. The investigator provides that.
Okay, what will you be providing during your time of being counsel?
I don't know the answer to that question because I haven't seen anything yet. I have no videos. I've gotten a couple reports and that's it. I have not had anything because I haven't done any work on this other than appearing for the 2 interviews that were scheduled because I didn't have a choice.
When
Because
you do find a result, are you going to make that available during
think-
the process?
I think that the result, that question is not mine to determine. That's the sheriff's, because I'm not the one with the statutory authority. The sheriff is. Again, if it's a termination, that's a public record. So absolutely that becomes available. If the sheriff decides to do anything other than termination and the employees don't appeal it or challenge it, then that stays confidential. So I can't answer all the hypotheticals of how all that stuff would come up. I just can't. I mean, we could literally be here for 2 hours longer talking about that. I'm sorry, I can't.
I appreciate your skill and everything, but I worry about the other possibilities. I've been involved in police shootings myself as a prosecutor and wished I had known more of what happened on the way in.
Oh,
Thank you, sir.
I agree. I agree. When you said you've been involved in police shootings, I assumed it was as a prosecutor.
That is correct.
Okay, so Skylar's right and Chauncey's right. We can beat a dead horse. Horse is still dead. So at least, I don't know, maybe you can beat him back. I have no idea. Never beat a dead horse, so I don't have a clue. But anyway, but all right, so we're okay with page 1, the inserted paragraph. Page 2, they have concerns if it stops at local courts and strikes the last 3 sentences, they're okay with that.
So you need a motion to do it, or we just do it?
Well, no, I think we need a motion and then, and in that motion, I think if it's approved, then you authorize the chair to strike that and sign the contract.
What are you chasing? Fly?
Yeah. Or a moth, I don't know.
So, well, we've been at this for an hour. It's time to move on. So I move on the second paragraph to leave in the first sentence, the firm will consult with the county attorney prior to representing the client or its officers in any filings, hearings, proceedings, or any activities in any federal, state, or local courts. Strike the rest of that.
And leave the inserted paragraph in.
On the
page 1.
first page, yes, leave that inserted paragraph. And authorize the chair to sign if it passes.
Susie, you have any thoughts? Did you do there?
She fell asleep.
Did you mute her?
No,
Okay,
she's still there.
okay. Evidently not.
Susie, yes,
No, I'm here. Geez, I've been talking to you. I'm sorry.
No.
I didn't know I was.
Oh,
Anyway,
we weren't hearing you, so I'm sorry.
what was the best conversation we've had?
Oh,
So did you hear Joe's motion?
I did.
Okay,
okay.
just wondered if you had any comments on it, any thought process.
You know, as you and Joe realize, I always want the best. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
I always want the best for the county, and I'm always concerned about the money we waste. So I'm just listening. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion. I'll second the motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion pass. I have a copy of this on the computer. I can break that last section and sign it if you want to wait.
And
And then give you want two signed copies? Okay.
I appreciate that, and thank you all for your diligence and your time. I know that these things are not always as easy, especially with things that don't come up, and then you start talking with attorneys, and we start talking about legal things, and it just goes downhill from there because we're attorneys. So I appreciate that. If somebody could email me the signed version when it's done, I'll get to work on this and we'll get moving forward. So thank you very much for your time today and paying attention and your good questions, all great questions too.
Well, I appreciate you and the opportunity to have the conversation. So I'll get this taken care of. I want to let everybody know online that in a second here, we will adjourn. There is a meeting at 1 o'clock, but it is a closed session. So it will not be on Zoom. What?
You have to start an open session.
Well, okay, but I'm not gonna fire up Zoom, I don't think. I mean, I guess we can, and then
We're
unfire.
gonna keep him in line, Abby.
Just
I believe our brief is going to happen on Zoom.
the attorney will be on Zoom.
Oh, good. No?
he will be here in person.
Oh, he will be here in
He's
person.
already in town.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Did you catch that, Chauncey?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. You have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Skylar.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Lee?
Yes.
I will be calling in for that meeting.
Okay, yep,
Good enough.
same time,
Thank you
same,
to everybody.
yep, same time, same back channel.
Thanks, Susie.
I hit the restroom.
Okay,
I seconded your motion.
all right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.